am really excited to do this. So
I'm really excited for you. So I'm going to ask you a few questions.
okay.
And if you would like to tell us more about, just found out as we were talking earlier, I found out that you run a page called Aspie Girl, which is so exciting. It's one of my favorite pages. So if you can give us a little bit of a background story of like your childhood and like your diagnosis, that would be great.
Okay, thank you so much. It's actually interesting. I didn't figure out I was autistic until I was about 18 years old. And it was a while ago. I'm actually 40. I don't know if I look it, but this was back in, oh my God, this would have been like 1997. Yeah, I think that's right. So I went my whole childhood. I thought I was weird, and people kept telling me I was just shy. I had a lot of stuff going for me, and that I had a pretty keen mind, and that was good. And I loved people, but I was shy. I couldn't make eye contact. I didn't figure this out until I read an article on it. I didn't know what to call it, but I was face blind. I didn't understand how other people were making friends and recognizing each other because I couldn't do it. And I'm trying to remember what else. I was anxious. I was always an anxious kid. And I kind of thought, it was funny. I knew I was just like my dad, but my dad was in denial. He'd never been diagnosed either. He was a self-proclaimed genius, but he didn't know he was autistic. So I would watch like Superman, Third Rock from the Sun, stuff like that. And my theory was that I was half alien, that someday someone would tell me why I was here and what I was here to do, and then I could do what I was here to do.
I thought the same thing. That I kid you not, I had the same feeling. I was like, I had to be from a different world. But yeah.
So I ended up in magnet school. I did not want to be in magnet school. I knew I couldn't handle the pressure. I was not competitive at all. I was the kind of kid who wanted to help other kids with their homework, not who wanted to compete with them. My dad made me go. And junior year of high school, I had a literal nervous breakdown and stopped getting out of bed, stopped going to school. I didn't try to kill myself, but I was sort of at the point where I was telling people, if I can't figure out what's wrong with me and how I can make this better, I don't want to live like this. I'd rather not die, but I don't want to live like this. I got my first diagnosis when I was 17. It was obsessive compulsive disorder. And then I got on medicine for that. And the good news was they ended up sending me to boarding school because the day treatment program said my parents were kind of crushing my fragile spirit. And I know they didn't mean to, but they really kind of were. They didn't really let me do anything because I think they were worried about me. They knew I needed sheltering, but it was like I was good all the time and they still never let me go anywhere. And I was just smothered. And like they'd forced me into magnet school. It was not good. So it's funny. I tried a whole bunch of medications for OCD because I was still trying to get it better. And my psychiatrist, who looking back on it may have been on the spectrum themselves, did not have a great bedside manner. So I'd been taking anafranil, which had given me all these seizures. And she looks at me with a totally straight face and she says to me, I'll never forget this, that can be one symptom of a brain tumor. And then she just sits there like this and watches me for my reaction. I'm thinking, oh my God, are you serious? So like I have a panic attack right in front of her. And then I do something I did for years, but I never really thought about. I tried not to do it in front of people. I got so upset that I went into a corner, faced the corner, breathed into it, and started talking to myself until I calmed down. Then I left the corner like nothing happened, sat back in the chair and said, okay, I'm ready to talk now. And she looks at me and she has this look in her face like I just swallowed a paperclip. And I said, what? And she said, I've known you for months, but, and I said, what? And she said, if I didn't know better, I think you had autism. I said, what are you talking about? I was really defensive at first. I'd never heard of it. I didn't know what was going on. So she challenged me to read some things. I don't think she gave me a formal diagnosis, which I regret to this day. I didn't know how hard they were to get, or I'd have made her do it. But I started reading, and the first thing I realized was it was exactly like my dad.
Yeah.
They didn't know much about women back then, but, I'm reading and I'm like, oh my God, this is my dad. And I'm just like my dad below the surface. I must be this. This has to be right.
It's so funny you say that, right? Because my dad's the same way. He was very, very like he was he dropped out of high school. He was very good at business. He was able to build cars like just by looking at him, he could figure out what was wrong with him. He was very obsessive with his cars. My mom was too. Both of them are like really smart. And so when you're telling me right now about talking to yourself, I used to do the same exact thing. Whenever I get really upset, I will sit there and I'll start talking to myself. And like, it's so, that's amazing. So continue with your story. It's so good.
I was just going to say, I think a lot of us do it. It was funny. People thought I had imaginary friends, but I was mostly talking to myself.
Yeah.
I just let people think what they wanted.
Yeah.
But it was a game changer for me in the sense that I forgave myself because I was mad at myself. I spent so much of my life asking myself how someone so smart, as people kept telling me, could be so goddamn stupid. That was how I felt about myself. I was like, you know what? Everyone tells me how smart I am, but I can't freaking make friends. I can't freaking remember names. What the hell is this? I was just frustrated all the time. And I forgave myself. I was like, for someone who had this as a disability, I didn't do so bad. I'm pretty good. And I got more confidence.
It's amazing.
And I also decided that it was going to be my life. I was going to go to school for it because it was funny. When I was really desperate as a kid, I used to cry into my pillow and I used to just pray. I didn't know if there was a God or not, but I used to just make the promise with all I had. I used to just say, God, if you can help me out of this, if you can get me out of this, I want to help people like me. I'll go back. I'll do it. I promise. I'll do it. Just let me out of this. Like, all right, now I know what I'm doing.
That's phenomenal, actually, that you were able to understand, let that go. I know earlier we were talking about how you know people in a neurodiverse community on Neuroclassic, right? And you're making friends with them.
I love that.
So would you explain, because I don't know if people understand this concept, but making friends with people that understand you versus making friends with people who don't, like the big difference in that.
Oh my God. I wasn't in the neurodiverse community when I was young very much, partly because I was on the Aspie fringe of it by diagnosis. Back in the days when I was young, in my 20s, the autistic community didn't want the Aspies taking it over. They were doing the opposite. They were pushing us away. And the Aspies, a lot of them really did think they were superior. I didn't want anything to do with that either.
Mm-hmm.
And the neurotypicals didn't want to see you as autistic. They sort of wanted to use you as a token if you were an Aspie. It wasn't a comfortable time to be in the movement. And I remember I just kind of learned as much as I could. I got my master's degree in social work. I ended up working at the ARC of the United States, but I kind of felt like too much of a token there, so I didn't stay there.
Mm-hmm.
It was honestly only in the last 2 or 3 years I found this amazing neurodiversity movement where it was. And it was funny. I stuck a toe in the water. I didn't know anything was there. I put up my page, and the more friends I made, the more I saw they were all friends with the same people. And then I found them all that way. And it was funny. I met Tara back before Neuroclastic was a huge thing, when it was still the Aspergian.
Yeah.
And I remember I thought it was one person back then. I thought it was a page like mine, and it was just that brilliant. She always knew what to say. And I put her on my blog as somebody to watch. And she contacted me, thanked me for it. And I said, do you want to do something together in partnership? And she said, well, we're already kind of a collective. I don't know how we'd partner on something, but do you want to join? And I said, yeah. So
I think it's phenomenal. So one of the biggest things that I was actually working with somebody there's this thing called autism entrepreneurship, where they were trying to build an app that will allow people to connect. Because I don't think, I have this strong belief that it's not so much that we don't connect with people, it's just we connect with people who understand us.
It's true.
And we connect in a different way than everybody else does, right? And so it was kind of one of my big drivers was like everybody just needs to come in together and find things that they're similar, find things that they feel passionate about and share with each other so they can connect. There's so much beauty within the community. And so I thought, I should make a community as well. So we could, bring in more resources because there's so much out there for all of us. And so,
no, that's a great idea.
I love, like, I sometimes whenever I feel low, when I see your pages, when I see your posts, I'm like, oh my God, like this girl speaks truth. Like she just understands where it's coming from. So would you why did you start your blog, and what made you want to continue going?
It took me way too long, honestly. I feel a little bad about it. I feel like I should have been out there 10 years ago, but I actually had some really bad run-ins with, ironically, the Autistic Self-Advocacy Network. I got burned. And after that happened, I kind of gave up. I thought, oh my God, these people are it, and I'm not. And I just kind of went underground. And I also realized my skin was too thin. I took things too personally. I spent a long time hating myself and taking things personally. And I realized I couldn't start a page or anything until I got to a point where I could look at people hating me and not cry. I could just do that. And I finally got to a point. I found a really good relationship. I've been in therapy for a while. I've been doing self-help groups. And I finally got to a point where I was like, I can take it. I'm ready. I'm ready, world. I don't care anymore. So that's why it took so long, and no regrets. But you have to be so thick-skinned. I know so many people running pages who are like, oh my God, I hate my life. People just come here and slam me every day. I don't want to do this anymore. And I'm like, it's okay. It's really okay.
I feel like we should, I think I am going to actually get a mastermind, a group together of people who run pages within the community, because I feel like there's only the people, I feel like the only reason why there's a narrative in the neurodiverse community around you have to be this certain way is because those people have so much more animosity, right? They just feel so passionate about it, while the other ones who feel differently. There are different subgroups in the movement, and I feel like there should be more conversation in this movement, and that way, because I know people who want to get involved, neurotypicals who want to be allies, and it's hard for you to be an ally if you're always being judged for what you're trying to say.
Oh my God, I know. I have so many parents on my page. I think that's probably one reason people judge me, but I don't really care. I just want to help anyone who I can help. And a lot of them are getting kicked right and left off groups because they don't know what word they're supposed to use. They say something accidentally that somebody might find a little bit they didn't say it exactly the right way. And then people are like, that's so ableist. I'm not helping you. You're terrible. I feel sorry for your kid. And then they just drown and they're like, I'm done. I can't be here. I don't even want to hear from these people anymore.
Yeah.
And it's I get it. I get why autistic people are sensitive. Neurotypicals have in some ways mistreated us our whole lives. But at the same time, if we scare away everyone who wants to learn, we're boxing ourselves in.
Yes. Especially since, for me, I've struggled because I've been trying to figure out how can I build an organization around helping neurodiverse people. And a lot of my friends, because I've tried to quit so many times, and it's always been my friends who are neurotypical who are like, don't quit. Don't quit. You're passionate about this. Don't quit. And it's they're like, I'm like, yeah, but you don't understand. They're accusing me of being ableist, and I just want to do cool things. I would have learned. And they're like, it's okay. Some people, something my grandfather always said is you have to understand for those who do not understand. And it soothes me to understand that, yes, these people are in a lot of pain. And yes, it feels like you're being attacked. And some people haven't gotten to that mindset of they're not trying to attack me. I'm perceiving that way, but that doesn't mean it is. And so
other people are going to attack you, and they're going to attack you cruelly because they're angry. And I don't think they know they're doing it consciously, but I'll be blunt. Some of them want to take it out on someone. I hear it all the time. Yeah. I make a great target. In fact, one reason I present myself as a target, as I've said on my page, is I'd much rather you take swings at me and call me a Nazi. I can take it. Don't go find a kid on the internet who just got diagnosed Aspie and do that to them until they cut their wrists. Swing at me.
I find that, and this is one of the things that I feel like when you get diagnosis, you don't know how to handle that. You don't know how to. And then when you first find out, like when I kind of came to the conclusion that I was ADD, I've never been diagnosed. I'm self-diagnosing. Um, I kind of thought my life was over, right? Because you have ADD, like you said before, people are always say like you have great potential, but I don't know what's wrong with you. The thing is you can't focus, right? It's not you can't focus, a lot of things are going on. And so originally I was like, oh, I can never be a scientist, I can never be anything because I can't, like, it would hurt my feelings to meet somebody because they would meet me and they're like, oh, you're so smart, you're so this. And then I'm like, wait till you see the rest of me. And then it would like tear me down. And so when I got into the neurodiverse community, I was excited. You know, I signed up for a lot of online courses to help, you know, to mitigate that. And so when I got into the neurodiverse community, I was excited. I was going to help them. And like, so I'm like, I have all these resources. I have all these ideas that we can do together and we can make this community better. And the first thing they're like, well, that's ableism. And I was like, what? Ableism. Like, ableism is like the most used. If you tell anybody that they can do whatever they want to do, like, it's ableism. But it's like, don't you want to do things you want to do? So.
And you can do them your way, and you can do them at the speed you want and how you're comfortable. That's not ableism. That's encouragement. I mean, that's how I feel anyway. You probably do. My mom, I mean, she hasn't been diagnosed, but I have a master's in social work. I see people with all kinds of diagnoses. If she doesn't have ADHD, I don't know who does. She got a doctorate in English, defended her dissertation. It took her a while, but she did it. And she did it at Harvard. Then she started working for the government, and she rose all the way through the ranks to become a senior level civil servant, working right under the political appointees before she retired. If you don't let it stop you, it doesn't. It makes it harder, but it doesn't stop you.
And I wanted, yes, I was gonna say the same, because my mom she's not gonna accept it, but she's increasingly, my mom, if she wants to figure something out, she's gonna figure it out. You could be the government, you could be the mayor. My mom does not stop. She's very, very intelligent, you know, and so it's just knowing that where your focus lies. And so one of the biggest things that coexistence is supposed to do is bring wellness into this picture, right? Like, because I feel like we don't have enough conversations around what does it look like to be mentally healthy and autistic. You know, we don't have enough conversations talking about what does it look like to be actually physically healthy and autistic, because it's so different, right? There are so many.
It's not being yourself. I mean, I think some people have the mistaken impression that being successful and autistic means getting rid of all your stims and pretending to be normal. And
no,
it doesn't necessarily. I mean, it helps if you can control yourself a little, like if you're in a boardroom, but you don't have to be at a point where nobody knows who you are. I mean, people know I fidget. People know I squirm and don't make great eye contact. And I wouldn't want to be successful and do it by denying who I am, because then I'm not doing any good for the community.
Yeah. I completely agree with you, right? So the thing about, I was trying to explain to somebody, what is your happiness? Happiness is waking up every day and being like, I like the process of what I'm doing every day, right? So like, I used to feel really, because I had social anxiety, you know, because it's really, I used to have a social anxiety. And I remember I would go into, like, because I have Zoom meetups with my other friends. And I was so, because I move a lot. I'm really hyperactive. And so originally I was scared. I was like, I really want to be with these people, but I don't think they're going to accept me. Because, you know, and I went to meetups and like everyone was so nice to me. At first I was so shocked because I've always been bullied. And so,
me too.
See? And so that was one of the things, was like, everyone's like, they don't care. All they care about is, are you going to be nice to them? Everyone brings in their own quirks. And it was like this final realization of like, you put yourself in this box, right? Go be with the people who don't judge you, and go find the community that wants you and is willing to support you. And I'm grateful that I have a community of people that are very much about, you know, understand that I love personal development. I'm obsessed with it. But that's me, you know, that's my life. It doesn't, and I think that's another important thing to say. Not every person who's neurodiverse wants the same thing.
It's so true. I mean, I'd say I'm weird in a way in this community because my special interest was always psychology. I thought if I could learn neurotypicals well enough, I could understand them and then I could figure out what was going on. So I call myself bilingual because I feel like I speak neurotypical and autistic. People tell me I speak more like a neurotypical now, and I'm like, yeah, but my brain hasn't changed. I've just kind of learned how to speak their language, and sometimes I forget who I'm talking to.
It's so it's crazy because like they actually said, like, I was reading the diagnosis of girls with autism, and the thing what they said is you'll never be able to tell if a girl has autism because they're really good, absolutely amazing at wearing masks.
We're
like,
great mix. It's kind of sad.
Because we're able to observe, we're really, really observant. And then I was reading this thing about genetics, about how basically autistics, like if you think about in the genetic ideology,
One reason I used to call myself an Aspie before the merger was I hated calling myself high functioning autistic. That felt very ableist to me.
yeah.
I'm saying I function better than you, but I'm like you. Like I didn't like that. So I'd rather just use another word. And it's funny, when I used to call myself autistic back in those days, people would correct me. They'd say, no, you're not. And I'd say, yes, I am. And they'd say, well, you're very high functioning. And I'd say, well, you know, I'm kind of an Aspie. And they go, oh yeah, Aspie. Okay, that's you. And I'd be sitting there like, okay, you just labeled me, but okay.
Right. Because I work with, because I get in trouble for this, but from a caregiver's point of view, somebody who actually works in the industry and works with people who are hospitalized, right? Like these are people who are really, really like it's hard when you're trying to explain to other people that, like, for example, because I got in trouble for this too, but I was trying to explain, how do you, if a parent says like, my kid needs extra services, they shouldn't have to worry about the language they use when they're trying to explain to their doctor, or they're telling the community, hey, my kid does not, process the information. Like, he's not processing the information like everyone else is. And I think taking away some of the anxiety that we put on people who are nurturing neurodiversity, because there's a group I'm part of called Nurturing Neurodiversity,
Yeah.
and they're struggling. I mean, they're not struggling because they're together, but recently, since everyone's a little bit more heated, I've noticed that people are trying to attack these parents for trying to say, hey, like, my kid needs extra help. I'm not trying to label him, but I'm saying there is a difference between what you can do and like what he's able to do, as like, not saying like he can't do these things, but he needs, you get me?
I mean, I think we're trying to move away, and I'm not defending attacking the parents, but I think the terminology, they're trying to move away from low functioning and into needs more supports. And I think parents are starting to get that, instead of saying my kid can't do what you do, you can say, I'd love my kid to be able to do what you do, but I'm going to need more supports than this.
Yeah.
Blame society, not the kid. But I mean, I'm all about that. I mean, some of us need more supports than others, and for different things. I mean,
yeah.
The honest truth is there really is almost no difference between Asperger's and autism, even if you see them as diagnoses. It's all about when you learn to talk.
Yeah.
And frankly, it's very unimportant. I mean, I would just assume call myself, back in those days, like on the edge of the autistic spectrum as I would have Aspie. I went for Aspie because I hated saying I was a high functioning anything.
Yeah.
I hated that term.
The hierarchy. Yeah.
Ironically. That's why I did it. I was trying to be less ableist and I failed miserably, but
but I feel like it's such a weird, because I feel like, because like my client, my individual that I serve, she doesn't talk, but she communicates differently. But like, we have to be very, very careful for her because she doesn't understand a lot of different things. And so I love how you were saying that, maybe like taking it a step back, what language do you think is more empowering for the individuals for the parents or the caregivers who are taking care of these individuals that have more needs?
Well, I think just, my kid is autistic and they need more supports than they're getting. They're not getting the supports they need. And then if someone says, you mean they're really low functioning? I'd look at them and I'd be like, well, they may be lower functioning than some people on the spectrum, but I think they'd function fine if they got what they needed. I spent a lot of time trying to tell the county that when I was fostering. I don't want to get too much into it because it's not my story, but just saying, instead of focusing on everything my kid does wrong, can we focus on how we can support her well?
Yes. I'm actually trying to work with somebody about one of my friends, she has 22 and she has her own podcast, and she's actually working with Regional Center and Licensing about getting more people on the spectrum in the basically the conversation about the bills that they're passing around there. And there are people who are trying to fill that gap because there are so many resources, but people don't know about them. And that's what's like really hurting my soul, because it's like I was reading this, like, there's a lot of resources out there. And it's just the governments and private individuals, they don't have that connection to these people that are looking for these resources. It's really hard. So, yeah.
Part of it is too, people aren't using, they're kind of using their expertise as parents, and these are the people getting all the money. Like Autism Speaks. Oh my God, don't get me started on Autism Speaks. They get all the money.
Do they?
And they have almost no autistic people. They have maybe one autistic person on their board. They used to have two, but it was so ableist, one of them quit. They don't really listen to what autistic people say in terms of services that are needed, and they don't really help people over a certain age. So when people want to help autism, they give them all the money. Meanwhile, neuroclastic, oh my God, I'm probably like a tenth of the donor base they have. And I'm
Yeah.
not a wealthy woman. And like, I mean, it's not that bad, but you know, I mean, even ASAN, they have less than $1 million a year in their budget because, and they're like probably the best known self advocacy group there is in neurodiversity because all the money is going to parents who don't listen to these people.
And it's so funny you say that because a lot of parents, I was just talking, like one of my friends, she's a caregiver for her brother. And she's like, I don't know, because she's in my group. She's like, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. And like a lot of my parents, because I worked at crisis and crisis homes, and like they genuinely don't know what to do. And so when I'm hearing, because I always refer to Autism Speaks, always.
Oh yeah, everybody gets referred to them, but most autistic people honestly turn pale when they hear the word mentioned because they just can't believe that anyone would do the things they're suggesting.
Yeah, I think it's so crazy to me because I know that when I first got into here, I came in here as an ABA, somebody who's a caregiver, somebody who was like came from crisis and watching people put back into hospitals. So it has like it was just a very different experience. And I remember telling somebody at my job, my old job, that I'm like, I think like neurotypical and neurodiverse people are the same. It's just they need a different lifestyle. Like I remember saying that to somebody, and it's the truth. Like if you give somebody the right lifestyle, they'll do better. So, but
if you fit into their world on their terms, they're gonna thrive more.
They're gonna fit in a lot more. Like I'm like, I want to know how come like wheelchair, like for example, like I know some like sensory oriented activities should be implemented in like Olympic games as well, right? I know there's Special Olympics, but there's also other things for people who, like one of my friends runs a sensory museum and it's amazing. My clients love it. So I just think there needs to be more activities aimed for neurodiverse people. And
oh my God, yes. And the gaslighting that goes on. I mean, I remember when I was a kid and it wasn't people's fault. It was in the 80s. They didn't really understand autism or know I had it, but I'd just be sitting there like, that's loud. And I'd start to cry and they'd be like, no, it's not. That tastes funny. No, it doesn't. And I'd be sitting there like, maybe I'm just crazy.
Well, and it's so crazy, right? Because like I know that I'm talking to this because they're finding out a lot of autistic people are not living as long because they're not getting enough nutrients, and they're also finding out there's research coming up about their microbiome being physically different. So now it's like, okay, so if their microbiome is different and they're having all these like negative reaction, what does wellness look like for somebody who is autistic?
Well, I've heard to tell parents, if your kid won't eat any of the things they should be eating, deploy multivitamins. I mean, go see a doctor and ask how many you should be giving them, but give them the max. I mean, that's what my parents did. They saw I wasn't going to eat fruits and vegetables, and they bought these hardcore multivitamins.
But the problem with multivitamins is they strip out a lot of your vitamins. You're not getting even half the dosage you need. So that was why. So it gets a lot more. I was reading about that, and so I'm like really excited because I got into health and nutrition. Most people in this space are not, and I wonder if we got more nutrition on the ways that our body responds, what the movement would look like and how people's daily lives would look different. And those things excite me. But it's almost our time. Huh?
No, that would be awesome if they could find a way to make it less painful for people like us to get what we need.
Yeah, I think it's more about like, well, I mean, it's such an individualized, I find health is so, human is complicated for sure. But I was going to say that we're almost up to our 1 hour and I don't want to keep you too long. It's been a really, really great conversation with you. Like I felt a lot more inspired, and then I felt like a lot more insightfulness to like what is a neurodiverse movement, because I know a lot of my friends are becoming BCBAs and they say a lot of things and they talk about a lot of things. I'm like, oh honey, like if you come into the movement, you're gonna understand that's wrong. So
there's a lot going on and a lot of it's really great. I didn't mean to complain about it. I hate the kind of inclusionistic piece of it.
Yeah, I feel like hopefully I'm excited for the next decade to see where this all goes and where we're all going. So is there anything, what is your biggest takeaway of your whole experience for anybody who is just diagnosed?
Reach out to people like you, know you're not alone. Feel good about your diagnosis. I know a lot of people get really depressed, and it's not like that's a bad thing, but feel like nothing's changed except now I know what this is and I can do something. And I can
Yes.
communicate and I can defend myself. Like I was just as autistic yesterday as I am today, only now I know and I can do something with that knowledge. Um, and you're good the way you are. And honestly, also, I think it's going to be the next step, next generation, because if some of us go out and get jobs and succeed, we're going to hire neurodiverse people. I think it's just hard on this generation because we're not there yet.
Yeah. I have actually, I love what you said because I know a lot of people in the startup community who are aiming to get people, more neurodiverse people in jobs. I know a lot of people who actually are entrepreneurs